Hey family, it's Tasha MAMABEAR prepping. You already know what time it is, baby. Pull your drink, get your drink, pull up. Let's talk about it. Today I want to talk to you about something pretty important. I probably will get poor views because sometimes y'all just don't like the regular emergency preparedness stuff, which is crazy to me. But I am going to do this for the folks that do need it and are brand new at this preparedness journey, this lifestyle, trying to do things so that you're ready. Okay, so we're going to talk about it. Welcome to the channel. Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time, we just talk about emergency preparedness. We talk about natural disasters, different things that could happen, even job loss, but different things that could happen and how you can prepare now so that those things are not as hard. Okay, and really I just show you what me and my family do, and hopefully that gives you ideas, and I get ideas from you as well. So let's jump right in. So today what I want to talk about is I want to talk about just as a whole emergency preparedness, how to plan, how to go about even beginning to plan for something. Now, my folks in the audience, right, and the subscribers that live in places like Florida, for example, and the Gulf Coast, right, Mississippi, even Texas, Louisiana, all those folks right there. I know you guys know exactly what I'm talking about, that because you guys are versed in hurricanes and preparing for hurricanes. People who live in the tornado alley, northern Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, you guys are versed in tornadoes. And then you have like Texas, Kentucky, you guys are kind of versed with kind of both. You get the after effects of both, and you kind of prepare for that. Now, there is a 1,001 things that people will tell you they prep for, right? From aliens, from EMPs to the end of the world, right? A mass from the sun is going to come and hit a comet. There's a ton of like tinfoil hat type ideas, right? And it's not that any of those things are wrong, because I believe in a ton of those things and that they can absolutely happen, and some of them that they absolutely will happen. It's just a matter of time. But I think if you want to look at this from a critical point of view, it's very overwhelming. Yes, there's lots of things that you could prepare for, but how do you start? Well, you start by what are the natural disasters and natural life altering things that any person can go through, right? So naturally, what are the biggest, do you live in a hurricane area? Do you live in a tornado area? Do you live in just an area where winters, for example, are super heavy with snow? Do you live in fire country? Do you live in earthquake country? Where in the country, or whatever country you're in, what is the natural disaster that you have to worry about? The natural thing that happens every year, you have a season for it, typhoon season, whatever it is where you live. What is that thing that you have to prepare for? And everybody has this, everybody. In the desert, it might be a sandstorm, right? So what is it that brings your guys' family strife, could more than likely turn off the power, right? The power will not be on during this event. That is what you're preparing for. You're preparing, or where you start, I should say, and you're preparing for that natural disaster and no power, basically. And the no power comes from whatever that event is in your area, because it doesn't really matter if tornado, hurricane, bad weather, fires, earthquakes, typhoon, windstorm, sandstorm, all of those things. There's a big chance of losing power, and that's what you're preparing for, is to live your life without power, right? And hope that you have prepared enough that you can do that for a long-term period, right? So what is the number one natural disaster in your area, and start preparing for that. The other thing that I think I want to put in your head that you're preparing for is life events. A car accident, a life-changing car accident for a family member or yourself, unexpected, all of a sudden, medical bills, right? Something has happened in your guys' life, and now you have crazy medical bills, and you have this and you have that, right? Or just job loss. Somebody in the family loses their job. Everybody in the family loses their job. Like, how do you continue to do the things you need to do, right? Like pay the mortgage and pay the bills and continue to put food on the table and pay the lights and make sure the lights stay on. that is a major emergency crisis for people, and you have to prepare for the day that could happen, and how you would do it, how you would continue to make income and be able to take care of your family. Okay, so once you kind of know in your area or your world those major things that you're doing, for the natural disaster side, you're going to do some research. So you're going to go to your national emergency preparedness folks. You're going to go to, like, federal people, their websites. You're going to research your local preparedness. What does your local area have preparedness? And you're going to just Google the natural disaster that you're trying to prep for, and you're going to see what information is out there. Now, you're doing this because instead of feeling overwhelmed, it gives you a starting point. You're going to see basic starter kits, things to get a basic emergency. And a lot of them are the same, to be honest, okay? But you might have a few things that are tweaked depending on what it is that you're trying to battle, if you will, okay? Somebody who preparing for earthquakes is going to look a little bit different than somebody preparing for hurricanes, right? People for hurricanes are not, making sure that the TV and different things is bolted down and up against the wall, and bolted down in safety. They're not going to have straps and different things around knickknacks and their canning jars and things like that, because maybe they don't necessarily have to worry about that stuff, but you do for earthquake. The canned jars kind of irks me, because that is something that everybody should kind of secure and make sure is good, because one, there's tremors everywhere, but even something like a hurricane or a tornado and different things like that can push off jars, and jars can break and stuff is not secure, right? So okay, but I'm getting off topic. Okay, so you're gonna research, okay, because those lists that you find, here's the 25 things you need to survive a hurricane. Here's the 25 things you need to have in your house to survive an earthquake, whatever the case may be. It gives you a starting point, okay? It's by no means where you stop. It's by no means the list, right? Nobody's list has everything. It's impossible to I could talk all day long of stuff to get, right? And I do lists all the time, and by no means are they the be-all, end-all lists. Those are there in place to give you ideas, okay? And then we share ideas back and forth. But you're going to research what is needed, what do you need to get. You're going to start writing it out, right? Writing it down, your list of the things that you need to get, so that you can prioritize them, you can roll them into your budget, because not everybody's made out of money. Not everybody can just go out and get these things. You're going to get these things little by little and get it into the budget and start getting the things that you need to get to prepare for these events. And most people can't just go out and just do that and get everything on the list and get all the things that you need to prepare. If you can, God is good, right? Go ahead, handle your business, do your thing. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to load up on your intel. That's intel, ways to get intel. That's ways to basically to receive intel. And that's to load up apps on your phone, on your computer. That's to turn on your emergency broadcasting, whatever alert systems that you want to have in place, whatever apps or news channels or whatever it is that you want to follow, that is going to be able to alert you the soonest about whatever is going on. So for us, we have several different apps for different things, right? But you're definitely going to want your local news channel alerts. You're going to want whatever apps follow those different things, so that you can get notified as soon as possible. If you have several of them, then that's great. And of course, you have your radios, know your channels, things like that, just in case phones are knocked out and you don't have that. So don't let the phone be the only thing. Because if that gets knocked out, and I guess I should say expect it to be knocked out, and know that you have another way to get information. If you're in the car, that you can find, some information on one of the radio stations. You've got some AM, FM radios in the house, so that you can get information should everything be knocked out. Not just power, but your phones, the internet, everything. Okay, it's hardcore if the internet's out for everybody. Okay. Next thing I have is write it out. Get a pen and paper, and you're going to start actually executing what is the plan for that event, right? This happens. What is the actual plan, right? plan is to, number one, get everybody home. And everybody knows that their job is to get home. If this happens, you get home. If this happens, you go to so-and-so's house. If this happens, expect this parent to come get you. If this happens, expect this parent to come get you. If this happens, walk home. Like whatever it is, write it down and talk it out with your family, right? Talk about, if they're somewhere else, what happens if they're in school? What happens if they're at a friend's house? What happens if they're at an event? Whatever the scenarios could possibly be, what is the plan to be executed for, one, getting everybody home, okay? And then when you get home, what is the plan? At what point do you start plugging in generators? At what point do you say, okay, the power's not coming on, we better start cooking food on a camp stove or figuring out how we're gonna make dinner? At what point do you start plugging in your reefer? At what point do you start trying to pressure can everything? At what point, because it's very daunting, people who don't prepare for this, they lose everything in the fridge. You lose power in a lot of events. Number one thing is, okay, don't open the fridge. If it lasts for a couple hours, cool. Even if it lasts, 12 hours, whatever, you're still fine, right? People kind of know, hey, maybe fill the bathtub with water, don't open the refrigerator. Okay, we're just going to go out to eat, or we're going to go do something, but maybe the whole town's out. So we're just going to snack on stuff, make sandwiches, whatever. Maybe open the fridge real quick to make something, and people just kind of figure out how to do it, right? You kind of adapt. The real thing about this is, what are you doing on day 2 of this, day 3 of this, day 4 of this, day 5 of this? And if you have a plan of actually what is the timeline to do things, so like somebody for hurricanes, for example, a lot of your stuff is pre-prep. Something is coming and you prep out and make sure you have your stuff availably ready. You have your water out, your food, you know exactly how you're going to cook, what you're going to cook. You've got your windows boarded up, you've made the decision if you're staying or going. A lot of times you're going, but maybe you're inland and you're staying. You're ready. You have your lanterns ready. You have your generators ready. You've got your gas for that. You got your propane to cook. You know something is coming. Right? And it floors me how people are still not prepared for that. Okay. But you have stuff that people don't know about. Tornadoes, for example. Now, tornadoes, if you get a direct hit, there's really not much you can do, right? Because literally everything you can do can be destroyed in a minute. So for that, it becomes, how do you, or what do you have in place to just save your life in an instant, right? And so having that bunker, having that shelter, having that place to go that has food and water in case you can't even get out of it for a little bit of time. And that's what you're preparing for, is that event and setting up things so that you can quickly go somewhere that already has the supplies ready to go, right? Some people, West Coast, they live in, earthquake, the big one, it's coming. And it surprises me because a lot of people don't really prepare for that. And there's not much you can do when there's this thing looming over you that you have no idea when it's going to hit. But it is going to hit, Where I live, a tsunami, you have the big one, an earthquake, and then the huge tsunami that's going to come and wipe out tons and tons of people. And people just kind of live with that. Some folks know, some folks don't. People don't want to let, that fear and that, the energy of that natural disaster, knowing that it's going to happen one day, run their lives, right? And so it is what it is. But there's things that you can prepare. There's things that you can do, right? You've just got to figure out what it is that you're preparing for and get those things ready and then write them out. Something as simple, well, it's not simple, but let's just say all of a sudden you're somewhere. The car doesn't work. The phone doesn't work. There's nothing has power. That should be a clue that boom, 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 there's an EMP that is hit at some level, okay? And you need to just get home. But you have to talk your family through that. I think the biggest thing about emergency preparedness is not really finding the perfect plan and like, okay, this is what we're going to prepare for and this is it, right? Because it could be several things, but it's talking about it, talking about what the plan will be. Even something like losing a job. What's the plan? Right? You lose a job. what's the plan? Do we then cut back on certain things? We cut back all the money we can? Do we already have the resume? Do we already have the other things to just jump right into finding a job again? Are we okay with the one person's income? Like, what is the really, really, worst that I can get? And then preparing and making moves so that you're okay with that. I mean, sometimes preparing is just paying off bills and having, cash and having assets and having other ways that you have money and other ways of income that that you could fall back on if you had to, right? So really, my say that all because communication is the key. Talking to your family about what could happen. The EMP thing, people are like, well, that will never happen, or that, whatever. If you just have that one conversation with your children, with your family, and understand, look, this is what an EMP is. This is what could happen if you're ever anywhere and all the lights go out everywhere, inside, outside, the cars don't start. You see every single person's car does not work except maybe some really old school cars. Nobody's phones are working. They're all dead. No electronics are working. It's an EMP, and it's extremely important that you get home, right? And you need to be ready for that, because that's a little bit different. That's you preparing for no power, but that's you preparing for no power long term, like forever, possibly for years. Even if it's something small, you're talking about years. But I mean, that changes the game, okay? And so your preps, the supplies that you have gotten off of your list in that scenario are just helping you in your quality of life right away, while you figure out how life is going to change for you and how you're going to do things differently. You're going to learn how to cook differently. You're going to learn fire and all the skills that are needed to just live a life without power, like forever. I mean, it's bringing people to our knees, and not to mention the chaos that would ensue, because something major like that happens, death happens right away. Death is happening from jump. All the people in the hospitals that are hooked up to something, all the people with life-saving meds that they need that they can now not get. It's gonna be a horrible first even just 24 hours, because there's gonna be death and chaos immediately. Even if everything around you is calm, the local nursing homes, the local hospitals, those local places are not okay. The pharmacies are being overran immediately because people that need life-saving medicines that are not stocked up on those, can't stock up, whatever, are desperately trying to get some, because everybody and their mother is going to know that something major is going on. You're not going to be able to hide it. And so it's going to be catastrophic. So it's super important that you just get home and get safety, lock it down, and just stay in while that initial dying time happens. Okay. And that wasn't to just try to take this to gloom and doom all of a sudden, but like the chances of your family surviving really depends on you having those conversations, even as if it's as simple as, this is what it is, this is what it looks like, and this is your first action, right? And then you can walk, kids and stuff like that through the other stuff. And don't be somebody who has blinders and doesn't want to talk to your children. I've done several videos on children, talking to children, and I think that children are smart, and it's very, very important to include them in these things. You don't want to get 1,000 whys in the moment of an emergency crisis. You want them to be able to deduce that, okay, something major is going on, this is going on, okay, this is something that I could do to help, and they're not as panicked, right? They're not gonna be so like, what's happening, what's going on, and they know that they know the basics of what is happening around them, and they know at least the action plan and what they're supposed to do, right? And maybe there's not chores, but maybe there's action items that you have for them. Hey, pull this out. If we lose power, you start pulling this and this out. Start prepping this. And this could be stuff because they're home before you, or maybe you're all home, but they, put people to work. You don't have to be Superman or Superwoman and do it all yourself. So communicate it, write it down, discuss it, write out your list and make your priorities, and write the plan itself out. Okay. At what point do you guys evacuate? right? That's a huge question that needs to be asked in any emergency plan that you're making, is what could happen? And then, is this a thing that could have us having to leave our home? And then are you ready to do that? You know, do you have your car kit done? Do you have your basic, you know, go bags, your basic evacuation bags if you had to go somewhere? Hey, you guys have got to go to a couple towns over, go on a little mini vacay because, you know, it's going to be very, very dangerous for you to stay where you're at, like hurricane or something like that, okay? There's not many things that will have me and my family leaving our home. But that doesn't mean that you don't prepare for those things. You've got to still have your evacuation bags. You've got to have your car kits. Think that you're hopefully never going to use them. But then if you have to, they're ready to go and you're okay in that aspect. Okay. So I will be working on a couple different videos this week, trying to bring you some different type of videos that I haven't done in a while that have to do with emergency preparedness. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Please make sure that you subscribe, share out this video, please, for me, and make sure you hit that like button, and I will see you guys tomorrow on the next video. Take care. Bye.